Oh crap, she's whipping! Run! Just run!
First off, I do use the dub. The reason that I do that for the videos is because some people are sight impaired or just kind of listen to the videos, and so it's easier not having to look. But I usually do watch it in Japanese with the subtitles, and if I'm really busy, then I do watch it in English.
Mikasa Ackerman, model cadet, excels in everything. In fact, it's no overstatement to call the girl a genius.
The interesting thing about Mikasa is that she has no fear. She just does things. Like there's nothing left to lose. And so it makes it really interesting to find out why. What in her story or personality actually makes her such a formidable foe in battle.
I did what I could here, sir. I'll do better next time.
What on earth have you had to live through to be so nonchalant?
He's actually really accurate with that. Whatever we've been through kind of changes our threshold for what is scary for us. If you've never been outside, there's so much that's unknown. You don't really know. You haven't been tried or tested. And so a lot of people that have had very hard lives are exceptionally resilient to maybe regular things that other people might be shaken by. That's what makes Mikasa such an interesting character, because of her backstory and the things that have made her who she is today. That saying of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, often it actually can leave you with a whole bunch of trauma, but it can also make you exceptionally resilient to other things that people can't shoulder. It can increase the capacity of things that you can deal with and not feel the same fear response as what other people do, because the way that we look at what we should be afraid of is through what have I already defeated in the past.
Why do I have to suddenly think of you now?
And this is really cool because you see the first thing that she does is that she smells her scarf, and that brings back these memories. And it's actually true. Certain smells can bring back certain thoughts and feelings because our olfactory centers is right next to our memory centers. And a really special one though, it's right next to the anterior olfactory nucleus, and that actually helps us remember visual spatial things. So it's not just the time, but also the place and what happened in that space. So a certain smell may bring you back to your grandmother's house and baking cookies, or a story, or something else that's happened in your past. I love that they showed her first smelling her scarf that she always wears. How is this scarf important to her? Objects do bring us importance. The things that we carry, the things that we hold, we've imbued them with feelings, memories, sentiment. And so because of that, what might be a cup to one person may be the most precious memories of their grandmother to another. Talismans are different. Talismans were often objects that people gave to others to try to make them think that they're stronger or more empowered than they would. They would say that these objects hold magical properties so that people could get over things or do things that they may not have been able to do without them. It's kind of similar to the story of Dumbo, where he's holding on to that feather. That was kind of like a talisman. He was told to believe that this is going to allow him to fly, and so that lowered his anxiety, which allowed him to actually fly. The main thing to remember is that he always had that power anyways. When you have something that holds your power for you, you may not understand or empower yourself that, you know what, that power is actually inside of me. And so that's why having those objects that hold this significance can sometimes be a detriment, because what happens if you don't have it, and what happens to your own self-belief.
You're safe now. Mikasa, right? My name's Aaron. I'm Dr. Yeager's son. We were stopping by your house today for a checkup. We saw.
Our feelings of safety and security and attachment are a mix of different things. One, it's a little bit of our personality type, how were we born, and also what were we bathed in. And for Mikasa, she was bathed with loving, caring parents, and so she developed a really safe, secure attachment, but they were taken from her, and so because of that, she's a little bit more anxiously attached, but only really to Aaron. We look to what has happened in the past to determine what the future will be like. When we go through traumatic experiences, it actually changes our feelings of safety, and the world becomes a less safe place. And so because of that, we're less trusting, less open. Her childhood compared to this horror that happened to her is so important.
You did this!
Take him out! Fight for your life! The only way to live is to mine!
And when we go through that adrenaline response, when our body goes into fight or flight, we get this rush of endorphins, this rush of epinephrine that happens through our system. And then there's a variety of different responses that we can go through. We can go through fight, wanting to attack. We can go through freeze, where we just stand there, which is what's happening to Mikasa right now. And sometimes we might faint, or we might run away. These are all a variety, and we don't really know what we're going to do. We might think or hope we'll know what we're going to do in different situations, but depending on the day, depending on our mood, and depending on what the situation are, we might do different things, which for the species is actually beneficial, because if some of us freeze, then if we're dealing with, say, a tiger that leads chase, that would be a great idea. For those that faint, doing that against a bear would also be really smart. And sometimes it's better to go towards things that might become startled or move away. And so because all of us have a variety of our responses, don't feel bad that some are more weak than others. It's actually beneficial for the species, and we've evolved that way to have this variety to keep the species alive.
I remembered. I'd seen it all before, but I always looked the other way. The world is a cruel place, and it's home.
She was right in that moment, which often happens. People often say that they get these flashes that the world, everything around them kind of slows down. This is a type of depersonalization where they feel like they're not even in their own body, and they have all of this rush of memories or thoughts. And for her, it's going back to the world that there's life and death all around her. This is no different than what happens when the praying mantis eats the moth, or they end up eating the duck. Sometimes you have to push past these natural defense mechanisms of not hurting someone in order to protect yourself. And Eren reminds her that she's going through this life or death. It is either him or it's them, and she's not fighting for herself. She's fighting for her friend that just put his life on the line to be able to protect her. This reflection allowed her to see that this is not so horrible in order to protect yourself in order to live. And she's right. We often do create this cognitive dissonance of not really thinking about what happens to the meat that we might be eating, or the animals that are fighting for survival, or what the fox does with its food before it eats it. The world is filled with life and death, and for her, this isn't for fun or for pleasure. This is for her to be able to keep herself and her friend alive. That's important for her to remember so that she can be able to move past these natural defense mechanisms that we have to be able to harm someone in order to protect ourselves. We're actually not made to be able to hurt others. It's actually a difficult thing for most of us to be able to do. That's why the military actually has to train people to be able to shoot at another person, and often leaves us with all kinds of feelings of guilt and remorse. And that's why this perspective that she has allows her to move past that in such a fast amount of time.
All of a sudden, my body wasn't shaking. I was in total control. Focused. Ready. I could do anything.
And I love that scene because it's such a good way of giving that description of what happens in your brain when you decide, your brain decides to fight or flight. This gave her that signal that this is okay, and you can just see that focus where there's nothing else that existed. She just had to do one thing. And that's actually what happens inside of the brain. It shuts off the working memory. You stop thinking, and there's just that single-minded thing of surviving. And then it sends that electrical signal to be able to send all of that endorphins into your system so that your breathing gets shorter and faster, your heartbeat gets faster, all of the blood leaves and goes to the main muscle organs. You end up burning off all that excess of sugar that makes you stronger and faster, and you actually are thinking and processing vision 3 times faster than you usually would be, which kind of is like our own superpower.
There's really nowhere else for me to go.
That ought to keep you warm, right?
I think so.
And that shows why that scarf is so important to her. Eren gave it to her to keep her warm after this really traumatic event, and it was warm and kind and caring. It symbolizes this piece of safety and Eren, the person that risked his life and kept her safe. And so you understand why, for Mikasa, she has nothing left to lose. She will do everything she can to repay the debt and the care that Eren had showed her. When we go through something traumatic with someone else, that bond is just so strong between two people.
It was a good life.
And that's what's so cool, is that even though she says, I'm just gonna give up, I've had a nice life, I'm not gonna do anything, her sympathetic nervous system takes over and fights anyways, because it shuts off your working memory and just does what it has to do to keep her alive. Unconsciously, she's just made to fight, even if she doesn't want to.
Why? I'd already given up. Why am I struggling? Why do I keep getting up?
Which is really cool when we remember the amount of fight that we have in us, even when we say, you know what, this is too much. A lot of us have that feeling of, I just have to go on. Even if I don't want to, I'm gonna push through this. That internal strength that they can call upon within themselves. She has this deep-seated need to continue, even at huge cost, even when the deck is stacked against her, even when it would be easier for her just to give up. She can't. I think that for her, it goes way beyond just self-preservation. It's not just this survival instinct, it's who she is. It's her identity. I think that it was really set that day that she decided between all of her choices to freeze or fight or avoid, she chose to fight. And I think that that kind of set, that's the first thing that she does, even when she's not thinking. And so, though her conscious part of her body thought, you know what, it would be easier to give up, that surge when she ended up going blank and her thinking part of her brain shut off, her sympathetic nervous system went straight into fight.
I've lost any reason to live. What keeps pushing me?
Fight! Fight! Fight!
And that's the beautiful part, is that it's that memory, it's that set for Eren to fight because he's not there, so she's gonna keep on fighting for him, live because of him. Because that's what he would want her to do.
The only way to live is to fight!
I'm so sorry, Eren. I'm through giving up.
And those memories, that identity that we carry from when we're young, when we've gone through these traumatic moments, they really do kind of hard set who we are inside of our mind, sometimes for the good and sometimes not. And so you want to kind of be able to process them. But for Mikasa, I think that that's why she just fights like there's nothing to lose, because for her, she's already lost so much. She's not just going to let things happen with her idly standing by anymore. And that's my thoughts on Mikasa. I love her character. I think it's really well done, and I love her backstory. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Watching my videos is a great way to get familiar with the basics of psychology, but to learn more about science and technology, check out today's sponsor, Brilliant. They are the online interactive STEM learning platform with college-level courses on neural networks, computer science, math, physics, quantum mechanics, game theory, and a whole lot more. And they're taught in a visual, hands-on way. And there are many different ways to learn, but we know that the best way to learn information is to integrate it into little tiny chunks and to make those chunks interactive. This is the best way for me to learn, and I really retain the information. It's not just about knowing the information, it's about understanding how this information is applied to myself and the world around me. And if you ever get stuck, Brilliant has in-depth explanations that break down the principles even more into even smaller chunks. I finished working on the course on scientific thinking, and it was really wonderfully set out. It had lots of hands-on questions and animations with demonstrated each principle as it's applied, which was really good for me as I'm more of a visual hands-on learner. And I enjoyed that Brilliant also has these college-level courses that are taught in different ways, so anyone can learn at their pace and level. I can stay at home, learn, and be more adept at the skills that I want to evolve, and doesn't break your budget. And Brilliant has thousands of lessons with new exclusive content being added every month, so you never have to stop learning. All you have to do to get started for free is visit brilliant.org/Georgia Dow or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So just click on the button on the screen or head on over to brilliant.org/Georgia Dow. Clicking on the button really does help the channel. Yes, it really does. And so does clicking on the playlist above for more videos on psychology of your favorite shows. So please share, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.